I took 2 other courses, then I took Link's course. I learned things in Linked course that I never was brought up in other courses.
What's up, permanent jewelry artists? We're here on the Permanent Jewelry Podcast, and I'm joined by Terri Berry, and she is a permanent jewelry artist in Florida. And I've come to know her quite well, and she's got a lot of amazing tips that she's going to share with us today, including tips on taxes, and we're going to talk about the pros and cons of the unbranded machine. So if you've ever had questions about that, then stay tuned. So without further ado, welcome, Terri.
Thanks, Jake. Hey, everybody. So honored to be here. Jake does a pretty good job.
Let's dive into the first topic because, you brought this up earlier because you have I think you said a master's in accounting.
I do. I have a master's in accounting. I have a bachelor's in business, and I have an AA in just general. So know too much about a lot of things.
Yeah. So my brother actually called me last night. And he's like, hey Jake, I'm trying to help, my wife figure out, all these tax things. Like, I don't know whether I should do like local state tax or if it's a service or if it's a product. Like, how do I categorize permanent jewelry? And as a disclaimer, this is not tax and legal advice. We always recommend talking to a CPA in your local area, but we'd like to just throw out some general pointers of what's worked for us or what works for Terri. So starting with product or service, like how can we define that, Terri?
Anytime you sell someone a physical good, it's a product. So even though we're welding and that's the service, there is a physical product, and that would be the bracelet, the anklet, the necklace. Then that becomes, if your state requires sales tax, then that becomes taxable. So a good entity to reach out to, is looking for the right word there, is the Department of Revenue. Most states call it the Department of Revenue. It's usually that, because they handle unemployment, they handle sales tax, they handle anything to do with collecting revenue for the state. The thing I see a lot is in the different Facebook groups is people saying, do I need to collect sales tax? Well, the first question is, does your state charge sales tax? And how you would know that is when you go to Walmart and you buy a shirt, not food, because food's usually not taxable, but a shirt or a pen. Do you pay sales tax on it? If the answer is yes, then you need to start reaching out to the Department of Revenue and finding out what you need to do to apply for a sales certificate. It's super simple. Most of the states don't even charge for the application. Then you will either collect sales tax from your customer or you will have it built into your price. And what I mean by that, let's say your sales tax for my state is 7%. And let's say you're charging $1 for a bracelet and you're going to have the tax built in. That means 93 cents of it is mine. 7% of that, the 7 cents, is going to go to the state. If you add it on, that dollar bracelet, when you check them out, will now say $1.07. That 7 cents you collect is not yours to spend. You must set it aside, because you're going to fire. Normally, new businesses do quarterly returns. Some states will set you up annual. I recommend you try to pay quarter, because you will try to spend that money and not set it aside. I literally, after every show, take that sales tax and it goes in the savings. I don't touch it, because you want to make sure you pay the Department of Revenue. All through school, I went to a very good school. All through school, my instructors would say, remember, the IRS is nationwide. They got a lot to deal with. The Department of Revenue is in your state. They've got little to deal with. They will knock on your door. They will shut you down for not paying sales tax. So I can't stress it enough. Reach out to your Department of Revenue, reach out to your CPA, get these questions answered, because what you don't want is to come back and owe a bunch of back taxes. Or worse, they find you at a show and they go, well, we're going to estimate what you've made and we're going to estimate what you owe us. Think about that. That's scary. So ask the questions, reach out to your CPA, reach out to your Department of Revenue. I can't stress it enough. Even if you get told, no, we don't do sales tax in our state. Great. Write down who you talked to or who you emailed, the date, the time. Keep it, because if it comes back on you, you can say, no, I talked to your agent and this is what they told me on this date, this time. So always cover your rear end.
So I know this part is up to the business owner, but do you prefer to include taxes in your total price? So let's say you charge $80 for a bracelet. Is it just $80 flat when the customer pays, or do you prefer to add on tax to that $80?
I add the tax on. Why? Because Walmart ain't cutting me a break. Like when I go buy tires at Tire Kingdom, they're not cutting me a break. They're not saying, oh, we'll cover the tax for you. No, they charge me tax. And just because we're a small business doesn't mean that we have to discount all the time and we have to give away the store. Like our mentality has to shift from, I'm a small business, so in order to get business, I have to give stuff away. We have to shift away from that. This is a luxury service. It's not brain surgery where you have to have it. It's a luxury. If they want it, they know there's sales tax in your state. I mean, that's, to me, is like, why would I give away 7%? I don't know you.
Yeah.
And I honestly don't, even when it comes to permanent makeup, whatever, because I know if they walk into a major retailer like Kay's Jewelers, they're not giving them a discount because they know somebody. Like that mentality's got to shift for our friends and our family too. Like
Hmm.
they need to stop asking. Like it's not, I don't mean to sound like a hard ass because there are people I love to death that I'd do anything in the world for. But when it comes to my businesses, don't mess with my money. Like that's my money. I don't come to your workplace and ask for discounts. Like my dentist asked for a discount for his wife for a bracelet. And my response was, when's the last time you gave me a discount?
Love that.
What? You charge me $185 for a cleaning and I don't get a discount.
Yep.
Like, no, I'm good. You know?
Another question I see all the time on Facebook groups is reseller license. And so, can you kind of explain, like, should they, like, when they're buying chain, should they pay tax on that and then only to get taxed again, or how does that all work?
So when you go and you get your sales and use certificate, that is your resale certificate. They will give you usually they give you a form. They might even just give you a certificate, and you provide that to whoever you're buying from. And then you don't have to pay sales tax on the purchase of goods that are going to be incorporated into goods that are sold. It does not apply to office furniture. It doesn't apply to, let's say you're buying a toolbox thing to wheel around. Doesn't apply to that because you're not selling it. You have to pay tax on that. Anything you're using in your business, your machine, your tungsten, your argon, you pay taxes on.
Hmm.
Anything that you're incorporating to sell. So let's say you're buying wire and you're making your own jump rings. That's not taxable because it's being incorporated into the jump ring that is going into the end product. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So that's where that resale certificate comes in. If you've already paid sales tax, let's say you go and you get your resale certificate, yay, now you don't have to pay sales tax. Those past sales tax you paid, your vendor is not required to refund you that sales tax. They could do it because they're nice. What most states have is they have a place where you claim the credit, and your CPA will be able to show you.
Yep.
I don't want to get too bogged down, but you'll be able to claim the credit for sales tax you paid on purchases that you shouldn't have. Like last quarter, because I've been lazy and haven't sent my resale certificate to this one company and I ordered a big order. My sales tax on that was big. I took the credit for it. It all washes out.
Yep.
In the end. Like whether you take the credit or you pay it or you don't pay it, and it all comes out in the end. Let's say I collected $2,000 in sales tax for the quarter and I had $350 credit because I paid sales tax on goods that were being incorporated into an end product, and I take that $350 out. Basically, I'm just getting my $350 back. I'm only going to pay $1,650 to the state instead of the full $2,000 because I took that credit. So it all equals out in the end. So don't panic. It's okay.
Yeah. And that's the main difference between a credit and a tax deduction. A tax deduction is like an expense, whereas a credit's like good for that amount of money towards your taxes. So it saves you that exact amount of
Yeah,
money.
and like here in the state of Florida, we get what they call a collection credit. They basically give us 0.025% up to $30 on our return for collecting their sales tax, because it's not our money, it's the state's
Hmm.
money when we collect it. It's not a lot, but you better believe I'm taking that that little deduction every time. Every little bit counts.
Artie, anything else that you think people should know about taxes before we switch subjects?
Yeah, as far as if you're in a state that you have to pay state taxes and you pay federal taxes, every time you order something, print your receipt. I don't care if you put it in a shoebox. I don't care if you put it in a tin can. I don't care where you keep it, but have a designated spot for it. Because at the end of the year, when you go to do taxes, you're not going through emails looking for invoices, looking for little receipts and missing stuff that you could have wrote off as an expense. It's all in that box. It's all in that file, whatever. And you don't even have to keep it separated by like linked or whatever the company name is. You don't have to, because you're going to do it by categories. You're going to do it by, like, last year, I think I had one that was literally change charms and connectors. It said materials, change charms, connectors. So everything that I ordered under that category got written off under that category as an expense. So
Yeah.
that's my biggest advice. That's the thing I see, that, and people are not keeping track of your mileage. The federal government requires that you have written documentation of your mileage, that you have the miles that when you left. So let's say you left and you were at 10,000 even. I'm using even numbers because it's easy. You're at 10,000 easy even, and you went 30 miles there and 30 miles back. When you come back, you write the miles back, 10,060.
Hmm.
And then you write 60 miles. At the end of the year, you can add those up if you're going to take that deduction. My vehicle is being paid by my company, so
Yeah.
I don't take that deduction.
Same.
That's one of the beauties of if you really build your company, they can be paying for your car
Mhm.
insurance, all those things. Also on insurance, this is one of my big things. If you are transporting your machine, argon gas, supplies, whatever, in your personal vehicle, contact your agent and have them add the business coverage on, because I don't know how many of you know, especially here in Florida, and I think it was California too. So double check with your agent. You have to have business coverage, or while you're conducting business, you have no coverage because they're not covering you to be conducting business that you didn't tell them about. So double check with your agent. It's important.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely good to know. And that's what my brother was telling me. He's like, I don't know how you've done this for years. There's so much that goes into business. I'm like, yeah, I mean, running your own business is not easy.
It's not. There's sleepless nights. There's nights you wake up, wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and your brain won't turn off. That's normal. If that's happening to you, that's normal. Breathe. It's okay. Like, don't think you're the only one who that happens to. I mean, I woke up at 3 o'clock this morning going, oh, I've got a show this weekend. I've got to pack this. I got to do this. I got to do this. Like, I had to get a notebook out, write it all down so my brain would stop
Yeah.
and I could go back to sleep. So if it happens to you, you're normal. You're normal.
Yeah, exactly. Now we were talking before we started recording, and you said that you've been in business about a year in permanent jewelry, or you've been in business longer than that, but you added permanent jewelry a year ago, and then you said the past like 3.5 months or so, you've increased your business by over 300%. Can you talk us through the process of that?
Yeah, I found this company linked. Have you heard of them?
Yep.
They're marketing guys. I'm just giving Jake a hard time. I give him a hard time on a regular basis. I took the PJ launch course with you and Tony. And even though I'm a serial entrepreneur, currently we own 3 companies. They're all doing very well. I'm happy. It's a lot of stress, but I don't want to work for anyone else. Don't want to, don't have any urge to. Done with that nonsense. Did corporate
Mhm.
America. The last 3.5 weeks, I've actually learned stuff from you guys. And I've had marketing courses at the master's level, at the bachelor's level. I've learned stuff from you guys that made me stop and go, I never thought of it that way.
Mhm.
That makes more sense. For instance, about the 5th person who asked me in a DM, you weld the chain in my skin. I usually want to go, no, and yell at them. But you guys taught me stop, take a breath, because that's an important question to them. They really believe that. Like, their brains can't comprehend what you're talking about. So you have to take a deep breath, answer their question with compassion and empathy and knowledge, because you're the expert, and then you'll win them over. But if you come back at them with some sarcastic, not so nice answer, they're going to find someone else. So you guys taught me to kind of chill a little bit.
Like I said, 3.5 months. It's been an amazing journey. You did our 14-week PJ launch program, and we were definitely excited to see your results and even going forward. So yeah, if anyone here's watching or listening needs help marketing, just let me know. That is going to be separate from, I know we accidentally said Linked, but that's separate from Linked. That's a different company that I own. So let's talk about the Unbranded Machine, because I've seen, we've been offering the Unbranded Machine in Linked since day one, and it's been our most popular option. But I've seen there's a lot of fear mongering and crazy comments and stuff that out there on Facebook groups and different places. So have you used the Unbranded Machine?
I started with the Unbranded Machine. My husband has a nickname of Cheapo Depot. There's a reason for it. And he was a licensed electrician working with high voltage, doing all the things, and he did low voltage too. So we talked and he said, order that one in. Let me see what it's about. I can't see spending $2,400 on a machine. Let's see what this is. So we brought it in. He opened it up. He told me, I don't see anything here I'm alarmed by. Normally, he's pretty good. So I was sitting practicing with it for a couple weeks. I had one of those fake arms that you use for like tattoo practice.
Mhm.
And I was putting bracelets around it and welding on that. And he comes in and takes it from me and he's like, put it on me. He goes, because girl, that means nothing. So I started welding on him. Then it became do everything you can to try and shock me. Let me just tell you, even doing some of the dumbest stuff that I've seen in these groups, I couldn't shock. Now, I will say I had a friend that I trained and she shocked me. But that was because I had the stylus in my hand and it was touching my bracelets and I had the ground in my other hand. So it went in one arm and out the other. That is the kind of thing that somebody would have blown out of proportion and said, oh, it's the Unbranded Machine. No, it was literally, she handed me the stylus and it touched my bracelets. And that's a connection. So a lot of people don't understand with the welding we do, you have to have a completed circuit. So when you put the ground on, that makes that completed circuit. So me having it in one hand, it touching the metal in the other, I became a circuit. So wasn't the machine. I do have a group. It's called the Original Unbranded Machine Group, or the Original Group for Unbranded Machine, something like that on Facebook. There's almost 700 people in there now. That group I started out of the goodness of my heart because I don't see a problem with the Unbranded Machine. Can you shock someone? Yeah. Can you shock someone with any machine? Yeah. There's certain safety things you have to do. For instance, don't hook the ground far away from the jump ring. The farther you get away, electricity is going to find the least path of resistance. Think about that. So the farther you get away, it's going to find a shorter way to get there. It might go through the whole chain to get to the. So you want to be right on the jump ring, right close to the jump ring. Always use some kind of patch between the metal and their skin where you're welding, because if it does, even if it's, I've seen people do it with the other machines, throw a spark. It's just part of what we're doing. I personally don't use leather because I'm a cruelty-free. Everything I do is cruelty-free. Jake's going to go, oh God, here she goes. I'm an animal lover. So I use vinyl. I use faux leather and it works just as well. I asked my husband, we tried to shock him using it, tried to set it on fire, tried to, all the things, and it's fine. It's fine. My biggest thing with welding is your tungsten has to be clean. It either has to be sharp or it has to have a blunt tip, depending on what metal you're welding. I personally never use gold filled for jump rings, because when you weld, the gold moves and that filler metal can show through and that can tarnish. I always use solid gold jump rings, sterling silver jump rings. I believe in quality over quantity. Like I said, not every client is your right client. I want people that see value and know that I'm going to stand behind my product. So for the gray Unbranded Machine, I've used it. I've heard people ask about using it in humidity, using it when it's sprinkling. I've had no issues with that. I like grounded pliers with it, trying to think of all the little, but that group, if you have that machine, Jake's in there. I've let him come in and see what I was doing before he mentioned it. It's only about the gray Unbranded Machine. We don't get into a lot of other stuff. Everyone in there is helpful, because if they're not, they're gone. Like, I don't do the caddy thing. I want that group to be a group where you guys feel comfortable to ask any question. I don't want you to feel like it's a dumb question, because there is no dumb question when it comes to what we're doing in safety. Anything else you think I should say about that gray machine? Because I like it.
Yeah, to me, like, obviously in Linked, we offer lots of different machines and a lot of great options from different companies and stuff. But I don't like seeing unnecessary fear mongering, by people who sell different things. It just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. And I think there's already enough drama in in any business, but especially in the beauty industry. We don't need more.
And I think you're right. Like, the gray machine, I've been using it over a year. And like I said, my husband came in and said, try to shock me. And I did dumb stuff, like touch the ground to his arm. I'm not saying do that and it won't happen. It's pretty hard to get something to happen. If you're following good practices like you guys teach in the Linked class, you'll be fine. Honestly, I've even gone to the manufacturer. I have an extra stylus. I have extra tungsten. I've ordered extra hoses, because if anything ever happened to my hoses, even though I could get them at a hardware store, because they're just pneumatic hoses, air hoses, I just don't want to deal with having to look for them. I have the extra parts for mine because we've even have extra, that machine comes with a pneumatic filter. We have 2 extra of those because if it was ever to break, because that helps fine tune it. And we just keep those in a kit, and my extra parts are there. Do I think everybody has to do that? No, it's what you're comfortable with. But if I'm at an event and my stylus goes down, I lost money. So I'll have that extra $50 part, because I'll throw it on there and I'll be fine. My other tip for that machine is the stylus. It's metal. It's not painted like some of the other machines. If you're like me and you have high static electricity in your body, like I can't wear a analog watch. It'll break every time. Wow. It'll stop running. So what I do is I wrap electrical tape around the metal so that my energy doesn't transmit into that stylus. But that's just something I know about me. I mean, I shock people on the regular, go to shake hands and I shock people. It's
Mm,
just me. So that's one of my tips. I mean, I have so many tips that I could give you on that machine, but as far as fear of it, there shouldn't be fear of it. There's a support group for it. You guys, when you sell it, you have amazing support for it. I bought mine before I found you, so I didn't have your support. So I learned, like I like to say, baptism by fire. I literally, that machine, we have it on a cart that my husband designed that we roll with my gas tank. I'm comfortable with it. And I'm usually the one that's extra cautious about, I never want to hurt anybody. I have 7 numbing creams for my permanent makeup business, 7, because not all of them work the same for somebody. I don't want somebody in pain. So if I'm saying it's okay to use, as long as you're following safe welding practices, then you're fine. I can't see, short of you doing something that you're just, and you could do it with any machine, create a circuit with somebody's body, have a flash burn from not using a patch to protect their skin. I like it because it doesn't have a touch screen. I'm sorry, touch screens for me, they break. Things go wrong. It's expensive to repair. So I like that big box. It's sturdy. It's, I can put it in my SUV, strap it in, take it somewhere, take it out, wheel it in. And I'm not worried about cracking my screen. I'm not worried about any of that stuff. Some people like a touchscreen. I personally find it's more things to go wrong.
mm,
I think all the machines that, from the Unbranded Machine through Sunstone's machines, I think they're all good machines.
mhm.
I will never, ever shame somebody for what machine they buy.
Yeah.
It just, unless you buy one that doesn't take argon, and then I don't understand what you're doing. But because argon, for those that don't know, argon is part of the name. TIG is tungsten inert gas. The inert gas we use is argon. It's part of the welding process. It makes a cleaner weld, it makes a stronger weld, makes a prettier weld. And let's face it, this is a luxury service. We want pretty weld. So if you haven't tried argon, get on the bandwagon. Argon is like, when I switched to argon, I guess I had my machine like a month and hooked argon to it, was like, wow, like my welds are clean, they're pretty, and I haven't looked back. Like,
Awesome.
game changer. I had one event that ran out of gas and I was just disgusted with my welds. Like, they weren't pretty enough for me because I'm picky. That will never happen again. We have a backup tank now.
Mm.
Never happening.
What kind of tanks do you
So
use?
I get a 20 cubic foot tank from my local welding shop. And the reason I do that is because it's refillable. So it's better for the environment. It's more cost effective. So when I go up and I take my empty tank to them, they give me a new tank. It could be any color. I cover it. We'll get into that in a second. But it's $35.
Mm,
Why do I want to buy a $150 mini tank that I can't refill? Like, for me, that's not cost effective. It's not good for the environment. So I recommend 20 cubic foot tanks from a welding shop. Air gas, there's national chains. I like the local guys. And then I went on Amazon and bought a canvas gift bag, and I pull it up over my tank, cinch it, and tie it. It's like canvas color with black hearts all over it. I saw somebody the night in one of the groups, and I can't give them credit because I don't remember who it was. She took a big dog sweater, sewed the armhole shut, and put a dog sweater on.
wow.
So to make it more attractive, because they like, one time I had an ugly green tank. It was like army green. Ooh, yeah, that was beautiful. So that's where the cover came from. But I think my cover was like $9, $10. But no, argon is everything. And then sometimes people say, well, I went to my local thing, they sold me a regulator, it doesn't hook to my machine. You have to ask for brass footings to step it down to our tube size. So you need to take your tubes with you, the air tubes, so that they can see what size tubes we're using, or just go to Sunstone and buy one that's already pre-fitted. There's Sunstone's plug for the day. But there's Sunstone and Peppy Tools, I think. I hope I'm saying that right. They sell a regulator for these machines, and the regulators they sell will work on any of the machines. So there's that option. The initial investment's hard. You're talking probably 150 for a regulator, depending on which one you buy. And then your tank's probably a couple $100 for the initial tank because you're buying a steel tank. Then after that, you just keep trading it in for $35. I mean, and we just did a backup tank just because I'll never be without gas again.
Mm-hmm.
And literally, I ran out of gas, not because of my regulator, not because of anything other than I thought, oh, I got enough. Yeah, I don't drive my car like that. So why I thought it would work with my machine, I don't know. So
Yeah, it's
yeah,
weird. I feel like argon's one of those other things that people either love it or hate it. Or I've talked to people who said it didn't make any difference, and then of course, I've talked to a lot of people that said it made a lot of difference. So I don't know. I mean, I don't do welding myself. I'm just the marketing guy, so I trust you as the expert.
I really, when I first did it, I was like, I'm not using argon. That's not necessary. I had that mindset. Part of it was that's more money that I have to put out.
Mhm.
I was being cheap. Then I started watching videos on YouTube from people who do TIG welding, not MIG welding, MIG, but TIG welding, what we do. And they all kept saying the same thing. How you grind your tungsten matters. Argon matters. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try it. What's the worst that happens? I try it and don't like it. Okay. Then I'll sell the empty tank when I empty it to someone. Once I welded the first time with it, I was like, this light went on and I was like, oh, that's why my welds look like sooty and they don't come completely clean. Oh, that's why my welds have that little dip in them. Oh, that's like everything just that I was struggling with went away.
Interesting.
Of course, I pick up things pretty fast. So for me to admit that I was wrong is pretty hard. So I was wrong. I mean, I was listening to people in the group saying, oh, you don't need argon. But then when I started really doing the research and followed the science of what TIG means and really started delving into it, I was like, yeah, I think I do need argon. And I needed argon. Forgot what I was going to say. Just like grinding your tungsten matters, you have to spin it the same way all the way around because you want the spiral grooves on your tungsten to flow in one direction. If they're fractured, when that welding spark comes off of there, it will be fractured. So it, instead of coming in at a single point, it'll come in shattered and it'll spread. And you might go, oh, well, that would be good because no, you're not getting enough power in the right spot. So that matters. There's just little things that we have to like make sure people know, I think. That's part of why I started that group. And that's why I love this industry. It's so new.
Yeah.
There's so much that we can help each other. There was something that I was going to say there. Couldn't have been important because my brain just went.
Well, I mean, you make a good point about how like you started out one way and then you decided to switch, and like it was hard at first mentally, but that's why I encourage everybody, like especially in a new industry like this, like things are going to change, people are going to discover different things, like people are going to practice more, and so never put your feelings or ego on a certain thing. Like if you learn from it, just like how science is always changing and they're discovering new things, like don't never get emotional with things like this is why, like, I mean, this podcast is meant to educate people, and so whether I've said something in the past like, oh, you don't need argon, or whatever, I mean, you guys are the expert. I bring you on here to share whatever knowledge or whatever your truths are, and so that's why I encourage everybody not to get into these hissy fights on the groups that we see all the time, not in your group but in other groups.
Oh no, I know what you mean. And all I can say to that is if you see those battles, just walk away from them. They're not worth it. Like, who wants to die on the hill for permanent jewelry? I know what I was going to tell you. For anyone who's listening to this podcast who thinks they want to get into permanent jewelry, now is the time. I'm still having, I mean, I do some pretty big events with 10,000, 12,000 people at it. 80 to 90% of the people who stop are like, what's permanent jewelry?
Yep.
See, I don't take that as a negative. I take that as a chance to educate you. I may touch you right now with my card and you go home and you mention it to someone in your family and they're like, oh my God, permanent jewelry. You're going to call me because I took the time to educate you and let you know what it is. I take it as this is a market untapped.
Yep.
And like I said, there's 7 people in my area doing this that I know of. So there's got to be more. I don't sell plated jewelry. I don't sell copper jewelry. They tarnish too easy. For me, we're selling such a luxury service that I want people to get the very best of the best. So I do sterling 14 karat gold filled, rose gold filled, and I do 14 karat gold. I don't stock a lot of 14 karat gold. I do a lot of special order and I make them give me a 50% deposit because let's face it, 14 karat gold's expensive right now.
Yeah.
So that's the point I was going to make and I forgot. Like, if you're thinking about doing this, get with them on the PJ launch. Like, you want to know, like, if you've done your training and you want to know how to run your business for marketing, these guys know what, I'm sorry, I have laryngitis. These guys know what they're talking about. I like to tease them and tell them they're just all right. But, off the record, they're pretty good. And that's just me from being an honest person, like just telling you how I feel about it. I think the PJ launch is amazing. I've seen some people in that group who just started, and I can't think of her name. The one girl that was like in our first call, and you were talking about reaching out, and she started reaching out to all these businesses and booked 2 events that first night.
Yeah.
I was impressed with that. Like, that tenacity goes far. But she needed y'all to flip the switch on her ideas. For her to have that tenacity. So I can't stress enough that if you're going to start a business, CPA, Department of Revenue, PJ launch, your training that you took for your welding. If you didn't take training for welding because you already weld, great. If you haven't trained on welding and you don't do welding, I suggest you find a course. Jake knows one. I suggest you find a course and find one that teaches you. Well, I'm just going to say it, Jake. I took 2 other courses, then I took Link's course. I learned things in Link's course that I never was brought up in other courses. Not just the marketing section, which is amazing, but some of Sarah's tips and tricks were really good. I mean, I went and tried them. First, I was like, well, why did nobody else mention this? Like, it can't be that important. Then I went and tried them and I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. So don't think that this is something you can learn off of YouTube, because I don't recommend that unless you're already a welder, because there's a lot of safety that needs to be followed. You need to make sure that when you transport your argon, that your regulator is either detached or your tank is secure. That's high pressure. That's 2,000 PSI in that tank. Think about that. That's a lot. That can hurt somebody. There's just things that in these training courses, especially Link's course, that really stress safety. And you don't want to hurt anybody. I don't think anybody in this business wants to hurt anybody. Like, you need to be careful. You need to stop and think, when you go to weld, if they're all sweaty, have paper towels, wipe their arm off. Sarah taught me that. I never thought of that. Like, what was I thinking? That sweat is water with salt in it, which is an electron, which conducts what? Electricity. Like, hello. So that's something on your course. Like, and so now I have rolls of paper towels at events and I have them wipe their arms off or their ankle or whatever I'm doing. I'm not taking chances that I'm going to hurt somebody. I mean, probably wouldn't hurt them very long, but be a tingle or something.
Yeah.
But I still don't want to do it.
Awesome. Yeah. So much good advice today. Thank you, Terri. So if you're watching this on YouTube or somewhere, like, please comment below. What was your favorite piece of advice? Did you learn something about taxes? Did you learn something about machines, welding, etc.? I know there's a lot here. So I'd love to hear what your favorite part was in the comment. Terri, anything else that you want to end with? Or, like, here's my favorite question. What's the 1 or 2 major things you wish you could go back to a year ago when you first started? And I know there's a lot of stuff, but what if you had to pick 1 or 2 things, what would you tell yourself a year ago?
Get Argon. And don't be afraid to reach out to businesses and people, because the worst they can say is no. They're not going to kill you for asking. They're going to say no. Every no is closer to a yes. So when somebody tells me no, I take that as a no, not right now. I'm going to come back to them in 3 months and ask again until they tell me stop asking, and then okay, I'll quit asking. Because I've done that and had businesses say to me literally, oh, I was just thinking about you. Because one of my customers mentioned they would love to get permanent jewelry. So had I not reached out, they might have not remembered my company name and might have accidentally picked someone else.
Yep.
So those are the 2 I would. Don't be afraid to ask, and Argon. So that's it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on here and sharing all your advice and tips. We really appreciate it. And if they want to reach out to you or find you, where's the best place? Is your Facebook group, Instagram?
Instagram, I am Terri, TERRI _Berry, BERRY, like berry on a vine, _USA, because there's a doll maker, I guess, named Terri Berry. You can find me there. And if you message me there and you can't find the group on Facebook, I can send you a link. Jake has the link too. So, but try not to bug him too much because he gets crazy.
Now, if you guys are interested in anything that me or Terri mentioned, either message me or her, and we're happy to point you in the right direction. So, all right. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we'll see you in the next one.